Welcome back to Voices of Education City. I'm your host Saad.
And I'm Muhammad. In today's episode, we are diving into the fascinating role that language plays in shaping our identities here at Carnegie Mellon University in Qatar and Education City.
Education City is a melting pot of languages and cultures, and for many of us, the languages we speak are central to our sense of self. Today, we'll explore how language shapes our identities in this unique academic environment, and we'll be talking to Job, an international student from Rwanda, about his personal experiences navigating multiple languages in his academic and social life.
Exactly. Job's story will give us a window into how students from different linguistic backgrounds find themselves negotiating their identities in an English dominated academic environment. Whether it's adjusting to the language of instruction or switching between languages to communicate effectively with others, language plays a big role in how we connect with the world around us.
That's right. We'll also discuss the broader implications of language and identity, how languages not only allow us to communicate, but also shape how we see ourselves and how others perceive us. So let's get started and hear from Job.
Job, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you with us.
Murakoze, thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here.
Job, you're from Rwanda, a country with a rich tapestry of languages. You speak multiple languages, and you've likely navigated many different linguistic spaces. Coming to Carnegie Mellon University, Qatar, where the primary language is English, did you feel any tension between the languages you speak back home and the language of instruction here?
Yeah, definitely. Back home in Rwanda, I speak English with my family. That's my native language. Sometimes also French in more formal settings, then English for education. So arriving here in CMU-Q was interesting experience because although English is language of instructions, here I wasn't used every day to speak English. Like mostly I remember like when like first few weeks I used to like mix up the languages because I was in my mind always used to think in Kenya Rwanda, my native language. So it was kind of like challenging, also interesting.
Yes, Job. We all have this difficulty as bilingual people studying in this microhegemony. You talked about mixing languages. Sociolinguists and people who study this field refer to this as translinguaging, which is mixing either Arabic and English or English with any other language or any other languages together. I wanted to hear more about your experience with the translinguaging. Did you ever feel not English enough or had uh, trouble fitting in?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, if I reflect, like I remember in my freshman year when I started like that's why we were like speaking in English, but I was having this trouble where like they couldn't they couldn't understand my accent. So if I'm talking to my friends, they were always trying like asking me to repeat what I'm saying. Then kind of asking myself, am I even speaking the real or the proper English? So why others are not understanding me? Especially even in a class, like I remember like in English class, even the professor like they are native in English, so they could hardly like understand what I'm saying, especially if I'm asking questions. They could, oh, could you please repeat? Could you please repeat for like 3 times? Yeah, I kind of like remember that one was like kind of reflected like, am I speaking the right or the real English? Especially like back in my country where like we all have like the similar accent English. I wasn't having this kind of trouble to understand each other. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating how much language shapes our relationships and interaction. I was studying an article or a study recently in English about enoughness in different spaces, especially in academic settings such as this one. When you came here at CMU-Q, did you ever feel like you weren't enough in English, even though you're fluent?
Specifically in CMQ, really I did not feel like that much because we even if we had those kind of hardship, like we were able like to communicate, especially like like I already made like international friends. We could easily like understand each other. But like when I'm speaking to like a native English speaker, that's when like they kind of like having those kind of troubles. I don't know how, like, but like for the internationals, I would communicate with them like easily. I don't know, it's because maybe like because back in the days I used to translate it from like my native like Kenya Rwanda to English back in my mind. That's how like I was doing the things. I don't know how what happens then. The native English speakers they could not easily like understand me, but when we both internationals were speaking, we could easily understand each other. So yeah, but in CMQ especially because we have like international student whatever, I would say it's much more convenient.
Uh, those are very meaningful insights. Can you give us specific examples if you don't mind sharing?
Specific example, I don't have one specific in my mind, but like I have this one close friend. He's an international student. We could always talk, and it's that's fine. Like could listen, no hardship. But like there's another one of my classmates. Okay, yeah, she speaks three languages like English, Arabic, and also yeah, those two, English and Arabic. And she's a native in English. She's like Saudi American, something like that. And then I could ask, I don't know, like because like she's very social. I'm also social, so we started talking, but like she would really like struggle to understand what I'm saying, which kind of like hurted our conversation. I was like, oh, maybe I could have like if I had like better accent, we could easily like communicate. But like that's how I would say like, oh, I was like maybe my English is not enough.
Let me get back to a topic, if you don't mind, the topic of translanguaging. Did you ever feel a sense of shame when mixing these languages? Did you ever feel pressure to maintain the purity of one language, like maintain purity of English or maintain purity of any other language?
Never, never at all. I prefer my native language. I only use English because it is a medium of communication between me and my friends or like for most settings. I never felt the pressure of like fitting in into English or like try to improve my accent, whatever. There is no better accent. There's no be like, oh, this is English accent. Everyone has his own accent or whatever. And also because I never feel like pressure because like CMK especially is more welcoming, the professors, the student, whatever. So I'll never really like felt ashamed or like being pressured to meet certain standards. That's how I could say.
So, to be clear, you said you never felt linguistic shame, which involves feelings of embarrassment or a sense of inferiority and attitudes of self-reproach that arise in relation to the way one speaks. Would you credit that to the environment, or to the people, or to the overall atmosphere here at CMUQ?
I would heavily credit it to the environment, CMQ or education city at large. There's no judgment which accent you're using at all. You reminded me something like back in home or like most of like non-English speaking like countries where like you have to maintain like this kind of standards when you're speaking English, you know. I can find it like for when I meet a native English speaker, they don't judge. Like they try to understand you. They try like hard you can say like they're not judging. But like when maybe like back home or in high school or whatever you're trying to speak English, maybe like you make a mistake somehow, they kind of like shame you or they laugh at you. So when I came here in the CMQ in education city, I would say I was even more comfortable to speak English. That's how I would say. So I would credit the environment. I would credit the faculty, the nice friends I have, which really like make me more comfortable to say whatever I want in English.
Job, in comparison to Education City and CMU-Q, do you feel like back at home you would be feeling comfortable to translanguage?
What do you mean?
Well, to clarify, I mean that would you mind speaking both Kinyarwanda and English at the same time back at home? Don't you is there a linguistic shame felt back home, or do you feel like the same case here at Education City, where there's no judgment is happening also?
I would say there's a difference. I feel more, as I said, it's more comfortable for me to speak English here in the education center, like in the CMQ than when I'm back at home. Because I'm back at home, if you make a little mistake, English mistake with your friends or like in the crowd, they somehow they perceive it like like when like these colonizing languages like especially English, when you don't know enough English, they think you're not smart. They kind of like attribute it to the level of English you have, the more smarter you become. But like here in the Qatar, like we all know, or like in CMUQ, everyone like you have free, you have freedom to speak your level. So I feel there's more like when I'm back home, there's more tension than when I'm here. That's what I'm gonna say.
Understood. Thank you.
So, with the changing microhegemonies between here and Education City and back home, to be clear, microhegemony refers to the subtle, everyday forms of dominance and control that shape people's beliefs, behaviors, and identities. Meaning, you could look at the space-time constraints that face you here in Education City in comparison to those back home. Do you find those to be conflicting? And does that pressure you or change the pressure on you in any way when it comes to language and identity?
As I said here in CMU-Q or education city, I feel at ease when I'm speaking like English or maybe like French. So it's much more comfortable. Even if when I make a mistake, they can easily like correct me, especially I'm not a native English speaker. But like back at home, that's where the tension comes. That's where the tension comes. I definitely also don't like speaking English, especially in my country back. But like when I when I have to speak it, I have to be mindful. I have to be careful to be like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake, or I don't want to make the mistake so that no one will judge me. But like here, I don't mind. They can make mistakes and they can correct me because I know there's no judgment. So that tension exists, I would say. But I feel at ease here in CMQ.
Thank you, Job. Before we conclude this episode, is there uh, a message you would like to convey to future joining classes that will be joining us here at CMUQ, keeping in mind you're addressing people who might be coming from a conflicting microhegemony, or people facing issues with belonging, people who may not feel the sense of belonging that you and I might feel being students that studied here at CMUQ for a while.
My message is not to overthink because I reflect back. If I was overthinking, be like, oh, how are they perceiving me? Like the way how are they perceiving me? If I'm not speaking English correctly, how they seeing me? I would say CMQ is like good environment where like it promotes multilingualistic. It's fine. You can make like you be comfortable when you're speaking. There's no judging here in the CMQ. Whether student, whether faculty, everyone like they welcome all different accents of English. So to be honest, like feel free. I'm saying this as an international student who who is the same shoes as you are in. So feel free. CMQ is more welcoming. Yeah, it's welcome.
That was a really great and enriching conversation with Job. One thing that stood out to me is how language isn't just about communication, it's about identity, it's belonging, it's how we navigate the world.
Exactly, Saad. Language shapes how we connect with others, how we see ourselves, and how we fit into different spaces. And as we heard from Job, it's important to remember that no language or way of speaking defines us entirely.
Thanks for tuning in to Voices of Education City. We hope this episode gave you some valuable insights into how languages shape our identities. Join us next time for more stories and reflections from the diverse community here at Carnegie Mellon University, Qatar.
Until then, remember that language is fluid and so is identity. See you next time.